My voice is slowly coming back. And so are my viewers. Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies, and welcome to a video I will no doubt call my top 5 ground vehicles. Okay, maybe I gotta think of the title. Make it simple, Toshio. Make it simple. Let's get into the news. I've got a dream. And my dream is for more speedy boys. So, I'd like to make a series of top 5 videos for vehicles that I would like to see added into War Thunder. And it's just a dream list, a little bit of a meme list. And we'll start off with United States ground vehicles, or vehicles that may be accessible through the premium line of the American tree. Starting right off, I would love to see the Model 1931 Christie Tank. There's not a ton of information available for this vehicle, as it was a prototype that was tinkered with a bit by Christie himself, and that is J. Walter Christie, an American engineer. And of course, the suspension that he designed, and in essence, the entire design of the 1931 model, was adopted as the BT series of tanks in Soviet Union. They were sold as farming equipment and then straight up copied with, of course, no royalties going to Christie himself. It is the Soviet way. But Christie just happy to experience his genius being appreciated by someone, no doubt. The BT series of tanks are beloved by players of the Soviet line, with the BT-7 F-32 event vehicle with the 76mm cannon being among the best light tanks in the game, tier for tier, and it will bring tears to the enemy team. But what of the American Model 1931? Again, several prototype Christie tanks were produced with a high level of production quality, but because America was not looking for a lightly armored light tank with high mobility at the time, something that they would later turn around on, of course, the Christie tank was not adopted by the U.S. Army. And yet, a prototype of what roughly resembles an early BT-5 with a little more polish and sort of a retro-futuristic look, if I could be so bold, as well as the ubiquitous 37mm anti-tank cannon found on many... Hi, baby! You want a cracker? Sorry, I'm a little bit of a wildlife wrangler while I'm making these videos, so I do apologize for the interruption. Here you go, baby. Have a cracker. Yes, I love you. So it has the American 37 that would be so familiar to American tankers. So what does it bring to the table? Effectively nothing, but it's essentially an American BT-5. And that is just all kinds of cool. Obviously, because this is a prototype vehicle, and it's almost like a cross-tree premium, although it is a homegrown design. This would be a perfect candidate for a rank 1 low battle rating premium, and I think it could be an absolute blast in the game of War Thunder, and maybe it'll give Gaijin the opportunity to fix the suspension on the BT series of tanks. That's never going to happen. They've been in the game forever. Alright, what can we look at for rank 2 or 3? Again, I love the idea of this speedy boy. We have a few Hound series of wheeled armored cars in the American line. You have the M38 Greyhound, which should be a regular tech tree vehicle, but it's not. Event Premium. You have the Boarhound, which is another event premium, and you could have the M38 Wolfhound, which should be an event premium and a regular tech tree vehicle. Okay, what am I talking about here? There are a few variants of the M38 Wolfhound, all of which use the same rugged, multi-surface capable, off-road capable, 6-wheeled, all-wheel drive chassis that has an engine power of 19.3 horsepower per ton ratio if it's using the larger 148 horsepower Cadillac V8 gasoline engine. That sounds pretty awesome. The armor, not impressive. You will probably be able to survive light machine gun fire from close range. You will probably not survive heavy machine gun or autocannon fire, so you will be relying on your fantastic mobility, which should surpass that of the M8 and the Boarhound because of its large engine and multiple large wheels. Although it may have less effective mobility because of that 6-wheel all-wheel drive setup. I would love to find out. What is it armed with? One version, the ubiquitous 37mm anti-tank gun, and what I would recommend for a rank 2 event vehicle is the variant that has the M24 Chaffee 75mm gun having turret on it. So it's the same turret as the Chaffee. It is the M38 Wolfhound chassis, and it would be reasonable to see this at the same battle rating as the M24 itself. You're basically just trading a little bit less hull armor and wheels for the tracks. So that sounds like a perfect event premium as well as a regular tech tree armored car for the United States that is entirely reasonable to desire. What about a little bit higher tier stuff? I'm thinking maybe a rank 4 or rank 5 is where we could see this next one. In fact, in a few places in the tech tree, I would like to see the Humvee, the high mobility multi-purpose wheeled vehicle, and if that doesn't sound like Humvee to you, then don't worry. We already know. You could put just about any light weapon system onto a Humvee and expect it to carry it into the combat zone with a high degree of reliability and mobility until you get into Iraq and start strapping on more armor than the thing was ever meant to hold. But that's another story. In the game of War Thunder, I would love to see a Humvee with ATGMs at higher tier, and those would be at 8.0 to 9.0 depending upon the ATGM system, and you would basically again be trading the mobility for the Humvee for the armor that's present on other vehicles like the M551 Sheridan and the Wally, whatever that is. And they don't have a ton of armor anyway, so that added mobility could be helpful. Another downside is you do have less storage space in the Humvee, so you'd be looking at maybe 6 or 7 ATGM launches instead of the increased number you could expect from a larger armored vehicle. What else could you see with the Humvee? How about a 40mm automatic grenade launcher? That sounds like a lot of fun, and you could even have things like man-portable anti-air Stinger missiles equipped on a Humvee as well. So this could be something that really fleshes out the American line, not to mention all the other nations that could make use of this platform in the many variants that you can know and love. There's so many potato truck variants available for the Soviets in terms of SPAA and slapstick anti-tank platforms. And I would love to see the Humvee sort of fill that role in the higher tiers for the United States. I do not want to see a 3.7 battle rating Humvee with a high fire rate 20 mil on it. Yes, I'm looking at you, R3 T20. Go FAHS yourself. Okay. Next off, and we are getting into premium territory here. In fact, it could be a little bit of cross-nation action going on here. The Light Strike Vehicle Mark II, operated by a multitude of nations, probably rank 5 or rank 4, depending upon the armament. You could have the Israeli version for the United States, and the Singapore version for, let's say, the Chinese tech tree. I know you're getting into a whole Eurasia idea here, but I doubt that Singapore is going to have its own tech tree anytime soon, and it would be something to add some flavor to the Chinese tree. You can find a video representing the Singapore version on YouTube with a quick search of Light Strike Vehicle Mark II, and that is a very interesting video to watch. It's basically the equivalent of a very large off-road vehicle. We call them four-wheelers around here, but it's an ATV with very little armor protection and essentially an open crew compartment with the ability to mount, again, a dual ATGM launcher or any number of other small-scale weapon systems, again including automatic grenade launchers, which could make this a ton of fun at lower battle ratings or even at a higher BR as a scout tank. And I could see this honestly sitting at 8.0 to 8.7 battle rating with the ATGM launchers. These would be Spike ATGMs, which have a 4-kilometer range, or Milan ATGMs that we already see in the game. And I'm not sure what battle rating those sit at, because this is such a light platform, though, being able to be taken down by any kind of air attack, coaxial machine guns, splash damage from missiles, grenades, rockets, bombs, and harsh thoughts. I could see this having a slightly lower battle rating, but doing well in the mobile light tank meta. So as a scout vehicle, this could be a ton of fun, and if you could swap out the ATGMs for an automatic grenade launcher with heat rounds that could punch through, I don't know how much, but let's say 200 millimeters of armor, then you could have some fun times shooting heat grenades at enemy ground vehicles, sides and rear, taking down enemies that don't notice you, sort of playing that the game that SPAA are currently playing right now, but with even more liability if the enemy manages to get rounds on target. So the Light Strike Vehicle Mark II, a little bit of a wild card, and maybe a premium for US or China. And you can see that a lot of these vehicles have been premium material, but that's just me, man. I love my golden vehicles. I love the weird stuff. I like the prototype stuff, and of course this all has actually been built and fielded. Okay, finishing off, it's time for America to have another high-tier light tank, and the M8 armored gun system is a solid candidate. As, again, another vehicle that's been thoroughly tested and fully constructed. There's plenty of stats available for this one, and the important ones are that it's made of aluminum alloy armor, so not a ton of armor protection. It has a 105mm M35 rifled gun, carries 45 rounds of internal ammunition, 7.62 coax, M2 Browning on the roof, as you do. It has a 550 or 580 horsepower engine, giving it around 28.6 horsepower per ton, and that is a fantastic power to weight ratio. What else? That's about it. It has a top speed of 45 miles per hour or 72 kph for those of you that don't measure your distances in freedoms per eagle, and an off-road speed rated at about 2/3 of that amount. What else is there to say about this vehicle? It was never fully adopted by the United States, but again, thoroughly tested, and it's one of those vehicles that has been attempted to be sold to other countries by BAE Systems. With a 105 and a huge amount of mobility, depending upon what kind of optics you have and other goodies, this could be an alternative to your ATGM vehicles in the 8 to 9 battle rating range. And America really lacks a reliable light tank with a good horsepower to weight ratio in those areas. The M551 Sheridan is just not mobile enough to fill that role. It sort of feels like it should. Anyway, that's a story for another time. But this is a prime candidate for a regular tech tree vehicle at rank 5 or 6, depending upon the battle rating. And there are some options in terms of armament and modules that could make this more or less effective, but at the very least, it would have a nice spot as a high mobility light tank for the American line that can smack the enemy when it needs to. And now for the bonus round, I still would love to see the Skink AA in the game. This is a quad 20mm Grizzly design based upon the Grizzly chassis, which is sort of an up-armored M3 with a cast upper hull instead of the riveted plates that the early American M3s were exported with. So this is sort of a step between the M3 and the M4 Sherman, and it has a gnarly 420mm autocannon armed hydraulic assisted turret that moves very fast and has a good amount of armor protection. A perfect competitor for the Coelian or the later Flak Panzers in the German line, an armored anti-aircraft platform that America and Britain could both very much use in the 4.0 to 5.7 battle rating range. Again, just depending upon the efficiency of this vehicle. But why do I say British and American? This is a Canadian design, and as the unofficial 51st state, I nominate Canada as America's M551 Sheridan, and thus claim all of their prototype vehicles for our own. And there are, again, two essential variants of the Skink that were produced and fielded and saw active service in World War II. That being the early models that the Brits may have. I am a gracious game designer. That were armed with 20mm Hispano-Sousa cannons, and later on, Britain said, no more Hispano for you, and they were mounted with the less highly demanded Pol Sten cannon, a Polish Sten cannon, which is itself essentially a license-built copy of the Oerlikon. Oerlikon. It's a copy of the Oerlikon cannon. Boy, its units. According to the Wikipedia, this 420mm armored anti-aircraft platform has a 14 horsepower per ton power to weight ratio, which is just fine for an SPAA. It has the vertical volute spring suspension that you would expect on a Grizzly or an M3. What else do we need to know? Not much else. 350 horsepower engine. It sounds a lot like a Sherman. It looks a lot like a Sherman. It is a Grizzly, if you know what that is. And it has 50 millimeters of cast, very angled in some places, frontal armor. So you have an incredible amount of survivability for an SPAA that keeps up fairly well with rank 3 medium tanks that you'll find in that battle rating range, and is really nothing special, except that again, you have 4 20mm cannons with a fantastic rate of elevation, range of motion, and target tracking capability, so that you can actually get those guns on target for a lot of the low flying Stukas. What else do you have? JU-88s, BF-110s, and the like, even Focke-Wulfs with the Megachode, that are going to come in and try and take down your boys, and you can plam, blow them right out of the sky. People have been asking for the skink for a long time, and I'm one of them. Anyway, that wraps up my 5+1 vehicles that I would love to see in the American line, and of course, some of these could fit in other trees as well. And I think what I'd like to do is cover... Yes, BB. Here, have a cracker. Bloop! There you go. I think what I'd like to do next is cover aircraft I would like to see in the American tree. And then, well, the sky is the limit. We'll see what comes next, and I would love to see your suggestions in the comments below. If you're new to the channel, check the Discord link to join my social network and hang out with me there. And I especially encourage you to check out the War Thunder 2 Design Bureau channel of my Discord, where I talk about, well, where I'd like to see your ideas for the tank game that you would make. How would you make your tank game? Or what kind of game would you do, and how would you make that happen? Once that conversation has gotten to a point where I feel like I can make a video about that, I'll make a video about that. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.